Welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And here we are with our look back at our not quite 100 episodes in review.
We're on the cusp of 100
We
episodes.
are on the cusp. We are always honest. So my mind is very much on the fact that we're doing our 100th episode. And this is before we hit that landmark. It's basically 99 episodes in review. Or to be completely honest, probably over 100 episodes. But we didn't name them all episodes. So we've got a few things in our history that kind of throw off that number. So
the law's quite complicated, isn't it?
we have the darkest timeline, which is when we have to do solo episodes because one of us is in either we are not able to record or we're in turmoil of some kind, or just bad shit that has happened to us that has meant we cannot record within our episode so far. So that is our darkest timeline. That's the timeline when you think basically this is what it would be like if one of us is dead.
The end days.
And any of you that have been with us this whole time, obviously a big thank you for
big shout out
for all of that and all the people that have helped us, which we'll come more into in a little bit. But that darkest timeline is basically, if you've watched those episodes, you know that although perfectly fine, they are not as good as our normal. No. Because there's just not that back and forth. They're a bit of an odd concept.
It is. And they're really weird to do as well.
Yeah.
I think you did the first one.
I did.
I think you somehow did 40 minutes.
I set like a high bar.
You set a very high bar.
Mine. I don't know why. I was weirdly like, I had to. It sounds like it was like actually quite well, but that's because, I mean, I'm the one that does more of the has to do the very minuscule. I'm not egging it out at all. I have to do the most minuscule of editing and things like that. But I had the software we normally do on my laptop. Yeah. So for me, I was able to go, I'm just going to cut. I'm going to get rid of that a little bit. There's some awkward sounds there. So when you hear the final product, I was like, actually, that didn't sound too bad. It sounded weirdly put together. Whereas sadly, you didn't have that equipment. So, and I think, although I found it odd, I definitely had to I started and stopped 3 or 4 times. I started speaking and being like, what the fuck are you on about?
You just ramble, don't you?
That was, I think mine was the rip-off or copycat horror, or top 3 rip-off horrors or copycats. And then you went on to do a bunch because I was gone for quite a while at one point. You had to do a month's worth of episodes.
You were on maternity leave, weren't you? Well, paternity leave, yes. When I was on paternity leave, when I was gone and couldn't really record, when my daughter Eliza, who's come into the world since all of this began, when she came in, I had to go off. I just didn't have the time. Yeah, of course. There was no time at all. So Robbie nicely kind of just took over, which was because we've had to have several hiatuses several times across. There's been a few life events that have got in the way of me or Robbie kind of being able to do it, and we had to take at some points I think 2-month breaks or something. And you pushed on this time. So what was your experience with having to do basically a month or nearly a month and a half, I think, of episodes solo? What was it like for you? Because I did one. It was I think. Maybe this is just me. I'm not a great planner, but we usually do 2 episodes at a time. So usually we buy ourselves some time. However, what I would do is I would watch a film and then I would have to start writing a script because I couldn't just sit there and freeball it. I had to write a script to make it sound coherent and that I wasn't just stumbling over myself. And then I would release the episode. And then I'd be like, I need to get fucking planning the next film. And I didn't want to do any... if you look at the films that I did, apart from Dead and Buried, which is genuinely a film that I really enjoy, I just covered films that I don't think we would have covered. Necromantic was a weird fucking film. And maybe in some kind of... when we're looking at the dregs of horror films, we might have gone to it.
Come to that,
But that Uncle Sam, I don't think we would have covered. Shockwaves, we definitely wouldn't have covered.
Shockwave, Shockwaves was the one that you added on the aquatic Nazi zombies, which is what I thought the name of the film was. I'd never heard of Shockwave, so aquatic. I was like, what the fuck's aquatic? Because every time you go onto it, to be fair, I swear it pops up with more of those words than it does with the other ones. So aquatic Nazi zombies. That sounds badass.
Yeah, it sounds badass, but it's not. It's just a bunch of people getting drowned.
That was when I did my my copycat horror one, which is meant to be the start of a feature, but we haven't come back around to it yet. But it is one that I quite liked the idea of. But it was basically like I did Halloween, but it wasn't Halloween I was doing. It was the films that I thought were copycat. But I also didn't want to do the films that I was like, we could do this one properly as both of us and probably do Halloween again because there were so many copycats of it. But I didn't want to delve into the ones that were like the main ones. So I kind of found, what are the lesser copycat ones? Like
we did Alone in the
Slumber
Dark.
Party Massacre. And that one was a little bit of a higher one because I wanted to do at least one that was a little bit more exciting. But I did The Initiation and I can't remember what the other ones was called. But I kind of stuck with those. But again, I tried to only talk about them briefly so that I wasn't delving too deep. So if we wanted to cover those films, so it's a really hard thing when you're doing the podcast, but one of you can't do it. And I know lots of other podcasts where people do solo episodes all the time, and they do quite a lot of it. And I mean, fair play to you because it's not an easy thing, and it feels wrong.
It feels really weird doing it.
Yeah, like after doing it like back and forth. It feels really like you're just talking out into nothing. It's like, is anybody out?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the weird thing. You don't have anybody to bounce off.
Yeah, and it is. And the problem is also, like, and I don't know, I find it interesting that anyone who, like, does a podcast will know this stuff. And anyone who hasn't, who's maybe thinking about it, things like this, will be, like, interested in the fact that if you're trying to think about doing it by yourself, you need to have some kind of a structure in place, I found. Because it literally hit a point when I was doing that one episode, I was literally like, yeah, got it, and I'll just riff from there. Got to the riff point, I was like, nope, dead air. Dead air. I don't know what to say now, I didn't think about it enough, so I literally had to stop and go, right, I need to go and really make some proper notes on this film, then I'll come back and do it again. So it took a long process, but that's just one of the... That's our like our darkest kind of the timeline. A few of the other ones that we haven't kind of put numbers on. Sometimes it's just because we forgot. That's the honest truth right there. Sometimes we were just like, what's missing? There was also one point in time when I think for an episode or two we removed it, going, we're not going to do that anymore, and then went back to it and went, nah, we actually want a track of our listing. And there were even ones when we thought that doesn't really count, like campfire horrors that we do every year.
We didn't count that. We don't really
any little short extra kind of ones. If it's like an additional one, we just
spoiler-free reactions. We don't really tend to count, do we?
Those kind of ones. So we've got a lot of those kind of nice little side episodes, but in our minds, that's the kind of one that much more popular podcasting. That would be their, what is it, Patreon or whatever? Patreon. That would be where they'd post those, but we're not that popular.
No, not yet. I mean, one day.
Keep building. Keep listening. Maybe one day we'll release and we'll make you pay for the stuff you didn't have to pay for before. Because that's what's going to help us grow.
I know, definitely.
That's called business. We're economics here, to go American, because you're our biggest audience.
Yeah, we're going to tap into that well. Because I think at the moment we've made like 1 cent or 2 cents off of the podcast.
We have indeed. We had like an
advert.
We had like some advertising thing. Although I've never heard anything advertising pop up. We do have advertising listed, but it just nothing ever happens on it. I assume you have to have interest to do that.
Yeah, people have to listen to the show.
I think there's like on our Podbean account that we use, Podbean.
Shout out.
It literally, I think it says on our money like 2 cents.
Yeah, 2 cents.
Thank you very much. So if you're getting into podcasting and you think money's going to be flowing at you like Joe Rogan, you're wrong.
I mean, I keep tweeting Spotify asking them to give us that Joe Rogan money, just because I think, let's do it.
Keep plugging it.
They got the money.
It's obviously not working. Maybe you need to try Elon Musk. He seems to just be handing out random shit to people.
I might actually do it. I might just tweet Elon.
We're controversial. If you want us to be more controversial, we'll do it.
Yeah, do it.
Give us that Elon Musky money.
Yeah, or come on the show and just talk about whatever horror film you like. We'll just remove him from the mix. We'll swindle him. We'll swindle him out of his coin.
Yeah, no. Dead air.
Yeah, dead air. Just Elon.
Just Elon. But yeah, so... we're kind of here to kind of talk about kind of a little reflection on the episodes that we've done so far, kind of picking out some of the episodes that we want to talk about, or just generally reflecting on what the hell our history has been of this podcast. Now, we have previously done a little bit of this with our, like, when we did our first year. We did like a special bonus, didn't we? We didn't continue to do that because it seems a bit weird to be like 2 years, 3-year episode. No, we did it when it was our 1 year, when we'd probably only hit about 40 odd episodes.
Something like that, yeah.
Because our content's gone up and down by the years, but our numbers have increased as well. If you're interested to know, so obviously starting this back, and we're going to jump. I think it's easiest to jump right on back down through the timeline. Me and Rob, literally, I played a little bit just before to Rob about the pilot episode.
Oh yeah, damn.
So our pilot episode. So we were trying to remember exactly what that entails. So I know. In my, at that point, newly moved into house where there wasn't much there, we recorded at like a little desk in a tiny room that's now my daughter's nursery room. Not a huge room at all. We were kind of recorded in there, and we were talking about the sound quality. So if you go back and listen to our pilot episode, I mean, it's interesting because that's probably the episode that most people would probably jump to if they're like, oh, this is a new one. I'll jump to your pilot. And it's interesting because it's not exactly a reflection of the quality of sound, and I'm not saying that this is the best quality we've had.
No.
When we were with our Dan Motti, who we called our producer and who made our theme tune, who we'll talk to when we get to that stage, but that sound was much better than even now.
It was genuinely good quality.
Because he generally had a proper setup to do all of that stuff. But we were recording, I'm fairly certain, it went between one of two things, which was either we had basically like our console headphones with our little mics on.
Yeah.
Or, which I think it is one of them, because we had some fuck-ups with when we've done that before where we messed up the sound on the whole thing. Or we used the microphone on a laptop, which is not a good sound quality at all. So if you listen back, you can hear how patchy the sound is, and the fact that our first episode has no theme tune.
Just straight in.
Which can be quite common of any pilot episode to have nothing. We had nothing for our first 2 episodes. And it is just really... It's kind of funny listening back to us kind of introducing what happened with the... Like, what is our podcast? What's our friendship? It's a good episode to listen to.
Yeah.
For like getting to know us, because it was purely
that's the idea.
About us, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was what got us into horror.
It was our top 5 horror memories and what things that we love about them, and and it was also our tester in our mind of like, is this going to work?
Yeah.
Like, are we even going to be able to talk for more than like, because we started more on like basically like sat in the pub, and we'd found that we just literally would just talk. The whole time we'd just be talking about horror films.
That's literally what we would talk about for hours.
You literally could have just put the phone in front of us, and it would have been randomly sporadic and tangent filled, which it is anyway.
Yeah.
But it literally was just, we'd just sit there and just talk for like 2 hours sat in the pub, and then be like, we're done.
Yeah.
We've come to the end of that horror conversation for now.
We finish our pints. Let's go home. Yeah.
And then we're like, well, we might as well just put this on air, right?
Yeah. Well, I was listening to podcasts, and I thought like, fuck it, why don't we try it? Like, well, the worst thing you're going to say is no, I don't actually want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's it. But we tried it, and then I think we kind of got into it, I don't think we're ever going to be properly, really editing it and going that deep into it, because part of the fun is it's just us talking about things that we love,
Yeah, no, I mean, to kind of think like ahead a bit. Obviously, when we did the podcast, so the next horror craze was our first episode that we ever did with Dan, which is our 3rd episode ever. And again, you can notice straight away the sound that comes in with the theme. Like, we sound perfectly pristine. You can hear our voices so clearly. We had a proper setup in his room where we each had our own mic, which again we don't have now. We do it all on a snowball.
Yeah.
That sound quality bouncing off of both of us was so clear. But yeah, that whole idea with us, sat together and just chatting and still not knowing if that was going to fully like work. Early on, but it was nice. As we started building to see like whether we could make it consistently keep going, and whether that was gonna actually have any interest at all.
Yeah.
But with the editing side of things, like Dan would literally remove all of our little sides, our little bit. And it is one different. And even if like we've talked about going back and like possibly doing some with Dan again to just have better quality.
Yeah.
But it is something that I don't know now if I'd actually want to have it as edited.
Yeah.
Because I actually one thing I like when I listen back to our episodes is you can hear little points, and please at us.
Yeah.
At us on CMTH Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, not so much TikTok.
Yeah.
We're not good at that yet.
Not yet.
I just stole Rob's job.
Yeah.
He's giving me the eye.
No, yeah. Just end the recording.
That's all. We're done now.
We're done.
You stole my job.
Podcast over.
But yeah, I don't know. When I listen back to our episodes, and I do for kind of sound quality control, because we've had several times in the past when we've had when it's been the completely wrong episode, or it hasn't sounded right, or something's been completely wrong.
Well, the birds.
The birds recently was a big fucker. It had like 3 different versions, because the first one was Death Race 2000 from the following week was just repeated.
Redo.
Then I released it, and for some reason it kind of cut off part of the way through and didn't work at all. So I had to just completely and any numbers you get, basically once you delete it, you have to just delete all of it.
Yeah.
So even though it's one of our lowest rated episodes, it's actually not. It's just our numbers were completely messed up for it. But
yeah,
finally we released the proper birds, and I think after 2 weeks of teasing people that we're actually going to finally get this one properly sorted, I feel like people were just like, have I listened to it? Or I don't know what's going on with that.
It's just Death Race again.
And it's not the only time that's happened. There have been episodes when we've just listened back, or someone's even said, there's something wrong with this episode. Like there's a noise, or there's a screech, or I've listened to it and gone like, why is there like a screeching sound going right at the back of this episode? But most of the time when we do it, one of the things we think is nice, and again, give us feedback if you don't like it, but is the fact that we are just completely like unfiltered, unedited. So you won't have the old like the Always Sunny podcast or the thing they say, cut that. That. Basically when they say something controversial, but they don't actually cut it, but they're like, we should cut that, we should edit that out, because that's not good. And that's kind of not us at all. Like, we probably sometimes should be more aware of what we say. I assume if either of our workplaces ever actually listened to some of the stuff we've said in the past, and there are probably some controversial things or errors we've got into, but I think that's part of the fun of doing a podcast. It's just like you're just airing it out there. And right now we're not accountable to Spotify or any other place that wants to take us on. Of course we do. Any of those places, we're not accountable to them, so they're not like giving us notes being like, yeah, you can't talk about beating a dog to death.
Smoking crack.
You can't be visibly high on air. Elon and Joe Rogan, that's both of you.
That's both of you naughty boys.
So you can get away with that if you're worth that much money.
Yeah.
But we can't. We would be well,
the 2 cents we brought to Podbean aren't exactly negotiating chips, are they? Let us do whatever we want, or this 2 cent is withheld.
Yeah, exactly.
Big money.
Yeah. No. So we do like the idea of just letting it flow.
Just hanging brain on the podcast.
Yeah. All those ums and those ahs that before, all those moments of... There's not normally, to be fair, I was going to say moments... One thing I think is good for us, where you can tell on certain podcasts that maybe might be a little bit more edited, is you can tell where there was obviously a break or a pause, or someone just didn't have something, or something went horribly wrong. We either just let it air, or we just don't. But I think one good thing, and this is one good thing about being long-time friends, when you do a podcast, compared to maybe someone who gets together and they kind of like, yeah, we should do a podcast, we both have similar interests, they don't really know each other, is we can just talk. Talk, and we talk shit, and sometimes we might go too long. And sometimes we've gone on such a random ass tangent about something that you're like, that has nothing to do with the film you're talking about. But again, I think, and that is probably something I like about a lot of other podcasts out there. Some of the best ones, I think, are the ones when they basically just let your personality fall out.
That's it.
You know, you can tell what the person's like, and they're talking about something, and you're just interested in hearing them talk.
Yeah.
You're not actually that bothered about if they're actually fully on point all the time. And I think, I don't know, for me, that's my personal preference for a podcast. When they're too structured, I'm like a bit like, I'm a bit like, I don't want to hear this part. I don't want to.
I want to hear people.
I just want to hear you talk. I want to feel like someone's actually there.
Yeah, and
not alone.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the tangents that we do go on are kind of related to the film and how, you know, the film is resonating in our life or whatever at that moment. Personal. You know? It's like, that's the good thing about, you know, doing a podcast with your best friend is that it's not, you know, it's the films, you know, bring us together.
Yeah.
And that's what films are about. You know, they're about bringing it together. And if we're talking about a film, then it's I don't see any problem with us going on a tangent because we're talking about it, man. It's, you know, it's related. It's reminded us of something.
Yeah, and there are many tangents that have gone off, and there are many questions out there that I think that have been like maybe left that would be like, that might happen or this might happen.
Yeah.
And maybe with some of them we will come back round to them and maybe some of them are just left in the air, but there are definitely things out there that will kind of to kind of go from the positive to not the negative, but there are things that sometimes in any podcast where I feel like you make promises or wishes or things like that we're going to do, and then it's just like, we didn't do that.
Yeah.
Or even when we say next week this episode's coming, and then it's actually more like 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
We finally got there, and that's recently as well. There are things where in episodes where we've had a certain point where we'll be like, we'll look back on that, and maybe we haven't come back around to that.
But this is the nature, isn't it? We're talking, man.
It is, and this is. I'm thinking. So to think of maybe one of our episodes, our very early episode, our second ever episode.
Oh yeah.
And how maybe that's something we probably have gone away from. So I was just reflecting on how we kind of approached episodes early on. So one thing we used to actually add in on, I think in the first few, is we might have a little bit of talk about current events in horror.
Yeah.
Like we'd bring up, so we did it a little bit when we were with Dan, and we definitely did it in that second episode because that is so related to something that's happening right in that moment in history. The second episode, to be clear, is the leaked cast list from Scream 2, which then does... Scream 5.
Scream 5, Scream 2. The leaked
we went in history.
Yeah.
It's our leaked cast.
We'd gone back in time.
Or we were just reading IMDb.
Yeah.
This is who apparently appeared in Scream 2, a film that was released 20 years ago.
Maybe.
That's what we did. Just sat there and just read IMDb to
David Arquette's back. That's a surprise.
That is a surprise. Oh, I didn't know that Timothy Oliphant's going to be in this film.
I wonder what he's doing.
What he's doing.
What's he doing?
The film also is one of the few times that we actually talked about the original Scream films, which we did reference in Scream 5 review and Scream 6. But there is actually more stuff in there. We do actually get into like what we enjoy about the Scream franchise as a whole.
Yeah.
But overall, the idea of that episode didn't age well.
No, definitely.
Because now it's like, who wants to go back and listen to a leaked cast list of, these were our thoughts on what might
predictions,
happen when it's already happened. So those are the kind of things I think we went away early on. We were like, we should do stuff like that. We should do like current event stuff.
Yeah.
So we used to start every episode, I think, or part of it into an episode. We'd be like, we'd have like, so this has just happened.
I remember
this has popped up. We did it for a little while and then really realised that this is going to date us really badly.
Really bad, yeah.
Like, who's going to want to listen to the fact that, did you know there's a new Halloween on the way with Jamie?
Yeah.
It was like, obviously, that had already been released at that point. But, it was that kind of stuff. Like, they're making this and they're making that. And it's like, anyone listening now is like, what?
What do you mean? They've already made.
So, there are certain, like, things that you want to avoid. And there are certain things that I think have been... I don't know. Have you got any episodes that you thought maybe didn't go as well as you'd want them to?
I mean, we had the... I'm getting a list of the episodes up. We had the lost episodes, as we referred them to. The ones that just kind of strangely disappeared.
Well, that leaks into like obviously what I was saying about Scream, because we haven't done the original Scream.
No, well we did it, but then it went. Yeah. The audio got fucked up.
Yeah, so we originally planned to have the original Scream, which. It's just interesting. We've done like the later sequels, but we've never actually, apart from talk about them in those episodes, we've never actually done the early Scream stuff. No. Even though I personally literally talk about it all the fucking time.
Yeah.
and early on, I think I used to reference before. I think we we built our repertoire of films a little bit higher as we've gone along. We've kind of seen more variety. Early on, I feel like half the time I was referencing Scream or Halloween pretty much every episode.
Probably. Well, it was the early days, you know. We were doing it.
It was 3 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the episodes, I think I really enjoyed, like, so obviously we opened up with our top horror memories. We did the Scream 5 one. We did like trying to predict the next horror craze. But a feature that we kind of did and we've built on was In Memoriam. That first one, you know, characters we didn't want to die was really fun. I liked when we did the Halloween retrospective, and even the Friday the 13th one was awesome. I think the main
they were all done with Dan, weren't they?
Yeah, they were all done with Dan.
The Halloween retrospective, I was thinking about that because obviously that was one that originally we thought, we can blitz it. We'll just talk a little bit about each of the films, and quickly realised how long we were talking, and we had to like split that into like
into 2 episodes. I think
it's because the first one's really long. The first one was like one of our longest episodes, like over 2 hours. It was long, and then the second one we were like, we're gonna have to wrap this a bit faster, kind of, because we're gonna have like a 4-hour retrospective altogether at this point.
Yeah, kind of I think the only films that I think we've chosen some pretty good films, and like the recent episodes that I think of, like I think the Wicker Man episode absolutely fucked. Suspiria fucked. Fright Night was an episode that fucked. The only ones that I think I got to the point where I was like, I'm driving myself insane was the Final Destinations.
Final Destination stands out as a
black cloud off the podcast.
It was one that started off when deciding to do a retrospective. It seemed like a great idea because we'd done the Halloween one and we were like, that was really fun, and we managed to combine, but we decided to do one for each individual film. We didn't decide to combine them. We decided, no, each one can have its own. Because we were like, with Halloween maybe we should have done that, which I think the way we did it the first time was absolutely the right choice to combine several into a thing. Because honestly, as much as I love the Final Destination franchise, there ain't enough there.
There's not enough
there but we could have done shorter ones, but it's just not the way we've worked.
It's not the way we are.
We just kind of talked, and we were like, no, we you could tell between the two of us, the first one is great, the second one was still good, the third and the fourth we were pushing.
We were pushing.
We were real struggling.
That was an endurance
and it
test.
shows, like, the first and the second, it shows maybe how much more depth the first two of those films have. Whereas the third and the fourth are very kind of thin, stylized. You know, there's not much under there. I remember being but the thing is, I remember being really excited to do the fifth one because I thought, there's more there. Yeah. There's more to deal with. But this is also the point when we were no longer recording with Dan. Yeah. We were doing this. I think this is when we were doing live Podbean. So we were doing like live episodes of Podbean. Because that was the only way we could actually work out with the stuff we had on my laptop of how to record it. But the problem with that was you had a time limit on it. So we were like recording these ideas, and we recorded those Final Destination, and we were bored. We were bored talking about them. By the third one, we were already and then they die and you get splattered. And
it was a real slog.
It's a real this, and we tried to be enthusiastic about it, but it was a poor planning choice to spread them across each one. But even poorer, and what probably makes it, I'd say the fourth Final Destination one in my head, I can't really imagine what the fuck we talked about. So I'd put that probably as one of our worst episodes ever. But probably our worst episode ever is Final Destination 5. Because it has no ending.
Oh yeah, it just
cuts
rushed,
off.
Didn't it? Yeah.
It cuts off at the end. We don't even summarise. The idea was we were meant to summarise and get to a little bit of talk about the things that were coming out about Final Destination 6 and things like that. And we talk about that film and we just cut off. And and at that point we had no way to we weren't doing it on any kind of system. No. So we had no way to fix it. So it's a black mark on ours that we literally, and I think we even had a conversation a while ago, I wonder if we should go back now we've got the skill and actually add something to the end to kind of wrap up the episode. And this is just us going, I feel like we had a little bit of PTSD from going through that experience of going, nah.
Yeah, it was literally nah. Because the ending fucked up.
And we were like, I think we did we might have done 1, 2, and 3 back to back one night, and then did 4, 5. I can't remember, but I remember the last 2 were a slog to record, and then it got the 2-minute warning, and we were like, fuck. So we tried to wrap up as quick as we could, and then it ended, and we were like, should we go back and record? Or we just put it out, and we were just like defeated. We were both like, no, just fucking get that shit out.
I do remember us recording several of those in a row and just being like, this is just so. Just being like, normally we wouldn't be like that with certain ones, and it's not the best way to approach at all. But at that point, I think we were just trying to get anything done, and I think we'd pushed it together, because that was one of our like busy periods when we're like, we just need to get this stuff out of there. And that was probably some of our worst. There are episodes occasionally. I'm not gonna shitmouth every single bad. I'm not gonna be like. So basically, most of
our podcast is shit. But when it hits, it hits.
Shit, it wants to do. You know what I mean? Yeah, we're like hit and miss constantly. I'd like to think we're more hit than miss, because we normally have, when we're having fun with it. Yeah. It doesn't honestly matter what the film was like. And there have been films. If the film wasn't very good, sometimes it leads to like, good conversation because there was a real reason for it. We could do some research and find out why it was so shit. And sometimes they're just straight out bad, but there have been occasional ones when I feel like all we've done is, all you end up doing is just talking about the plot of the film. Yeah. And you're basically just telling people about the plot of the film. And that is a very rare occurrence, I think. Yeah, definitely. We do have, obviously, the only structure we sometimes have is to follow the plot of the film.
That's it, follow the plot.
And that is the only structure we probably ever stick to. We have, even our things like introducing the film at the start, we are very mainly miss on that. Yeah. We don't, like, a lot of people will be like, you know, this film was released in this year, director, Yeah, every once in a while we occasionally come back to that and go, yeah, I guess we should tell them that. But most of the time we're just like,
this is the film.
You can fucking go and find it. You Wikipedia it while you're listening to us, because that's us doing our job.
It's too hard for us. Yeah.
But again, that is wholly linked into the nice things that people said early on was, you know, the whole, you're sat around having a chat with friends and having a beer and, you know, you're just talking. Yeah, the whole idea of our podcast is just to be talking. So I feel like often like the editing and the structure sometimes makes us feel a bit like, this just, I don't know why, it just feels odd. It throws us off at times. We've had times when we've tried to structure it and we've just felt oddly like
we couldn't find.
And even that, like I think even say going back to that Final Destination episode, I think we started to have to, we laid out certain things. Oh, we talked about it like this with that episode, so we have to talk about it like this. And again, that just made it feel even more like, why do we have to confine ourselves to this? And all of the funny stuff we had to say about Final Destination happened in the first 2 episodes. Yeah. And now we're just like, we can't make the same joke again. No. Not that we come into the episode. Again, this is so unplanned. So in our first ever episode, we even had that joke about the fact that I had like a written printed piece of paper and you had a couple of jotted notes, and that was about all you had to talk about it. And I can 100% tell you that that's probably gone not the opposite way, that we've probably both gone. Rob is probably more prepared at this point than me. I guess I'm normally the one, more throwing out like episode ideas, I guess. Yeah. But apart from that, the problem is I throw out episode idea and then I'll show up and be like,
what film
I'm going to talk about this. What was the film we're going to do that episode? Okay, I was like, I have maybe seen that film. Yeah. I'm going to talk about it like I have, but I
might have seen it.
And then sometimes, there might be ones when you've like religiously gone back and watched all of the horror films on your list of like top 3, and I sometimes have been like, I watched that about 10 years ago. Let's do this.
That makes it's still the same. It makes the mark.
But again, sometimes that is what leads us to like random ass tangents that just go down a little bit of where you're going. Yeah. And that's some of the more like fun parts of
doing it.
Of doing it, yeah. Absolutely. I'm just trying to think of what the next. So,
well, I'll tell you a good just to touch on a good moment of the podcast. And a good moment in horror.
Negative. So let's have some goodness. We make it sound like we're trash.
Just trashing the
trash
show.
Episode. Yeah, we're gonna beat it to shit death.
Yeah, the was the Fear Street week. Do you remember that period where Fear Street was coming out weekly? we were hitting an episode on it, and everybody was just buzzing about it.
Yeah.
It felt so good, man. It was like a real event.
It did feel like a proper event, like, for horror as well.
Yeah.
On, like, because everyone has Netflix, basically. Even if you forgot you're paying for it, or if you stole it from someone else's, you got Netflix out there. So it is nice when Netflix releases something of quality.
Yeah, at last.
I'm coming for you, Netflix. Most of your original stuff ain't great, I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
Especially when it's original films. They're like very hit and miss. But this was one, it felt like it was hitting that nostalgia buzz.
Yeah.
But not only that, Fear Street hit on Scream, Friday the 13th. It hit on
so many different levels.
More modern stuff, maybe like The Witch or things like that, felt like it was thrown in there.
Yeah.
You know? It hit all the different kind of tastes that you have, while also having that kind of teen slasher vibe, which is just something that me and you are just like that.
Really
that's our bread and butter.
Yeah,
like,
that's what we grew
love
up
a lot
on.
of horror, but if you're talking about an 80s slasher, then like
we're licking
80s
our
or
lips.
90s, we're like, yes, thank you.
Let's get in.
So a film that like hit on the 90s, the 80s, you know, and it's probably why the third part that had partially delved more into the past was less to our taste, because it wasn't as one that were like, oh, we want more of that 90s and 80s, baby. But that whole, not so much about the films. Go and watch our episodes if you want to know about our thoughts on the films. They were great fun. We've just said we should revisit those films just because it's like, it was kind of, but it was that fever kind of pitch of like everything on Twitter, Instagram, on our Facebook. It was all just fucking Fear Street. Those episodes did big numbers for us because
they did good numbers. We'd meet up every week. I remember you coming here. We'd get like a pizza, have a couple of beers, watch it, and then record it straight away and get that episode out. You know, and it was awesome. It was just a real summer horror moment, you know, George Costanza as the summer of George, you know? It was like that. It was, things are gonna go well, and they did. For like 3 weeks, everybody was talking about it. It was fucking class.
I do remember them feeling so great, and that was the first summer like proper like away from like COVID as well. To be fair, it probably was when we started to feel a little bit more freedom and stuff like that. So it was a bit more like you could chill, you could hang out. And that was a good moment, and I think in the episode you could feel our energy of that. You could be like, we're excited to talk about this. We're excited for how horrible we felt certain things, like the bread slice of death. Yeah, and I remember it being like, that's fucking brutal, and that was fucking horrible and mean, and like, but we were proper like for that character, and then other character was like, they die.
It was a real good moment, man. It was really enjoyable.
I'd like them to. They've said about more of that, but there doesn't seem to have been much progress.
Yeah, no movement on it.
It was a big hit as well for them, so I'm surprised there's not more. But yeah, I'd like to see, give us more of that. Give us the same, like a nice week after week where we can accept. Like I think that's what added to it, is that like you were literally like anticipating the next film. Like, come on, let's get. I want to see what the next one's like. Let's hit that Friday. It gives you something to look forward to. That's when streaming is actually at its best. When there are event things that you're like, oh yeah, next Friday, everyone's going to be buzzing about it. Yeah, global event kind of thing. That's an awesome one. I'll give another awesome one, which has a fantastic. And we have only done it once, and we've said we're going to do it again, and we've never actually come through on it. And that was the Make It Horror Home Alone.
Oh yeah, that was class. We said we were going to do it as Christmas episodes.
We did.
So maybe this year.
We did. We were meant to do one. We were meant to do one last one, but paternity got in the way.
And I was away.
Didn't have time, and it was so busy. Yeah, but we did plan for it to be Christmas. But we did also say we could do other ones out there. Again, if you want to see a film talked about to make it into a horror film, we'll give it a try. But it took some talk, it is some effort. We had to split into two again because of pod being tiny.
Yeah, so, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, so we had to do we did too much time on one, and then we had to record the extra just because we'd literally run out of time. And again, you'll notice like the episode that we have a little wrap up. So that bit's not great, but the rest of it is fucking fun.
Yeah,
and that might just be to us, but that is because we both had a lot to drink.
Yeah,
and and some other concoctions.
Yeah,
and then we started recording, which is kind of what made it so fun.
Yeah,
is the fact that we just went like balls out to the wall with it, because it was all related to like our childhood and the fact that when we were teenagers, we all like had lot to drink and watched Home Alone and just talked. We made up a whole different story. And this one was a completely different story again, but we were just literally taking that. I love that idea of taking a film that shouldn't be, especially when it's a kid's film.
Yeah.
That just seemed funny. I remember, I think you wanted to do, what was it, Dunstan Checks In?
Dunstan Checks In,
or
yeah.
Whatever. Just because
it's an ape. That's going to be
class. It's an ape. What can we do with that in the horror genre? But yeah, taking anything like, we were talking about Christmas films like Elf and stuff like that, and how could you turn this into a psychopath that's stalking your whole family and things like that?
They were complete riffing as well. There was no planning on that.
Oh yeah, none at all. We were literally, right, we're going to get drunk, we're going to smoke, and we are just going to just make it up as we go along. Even partially seeing if we can remember the structure of the film.
Because there was one moment.
The film.
I can't remember, but there was one moment
we know
where we were talking about it, and then I went real left field with it, and you weren't expecting it at all.
Oh yeah,
and you were like, "Why would the fuck did that happen?" I was like, "I can't even remember what it was." I listened back to it, but I haven't listened back to it since, and it just went real left field.
I do. I remember you. Yeah, you took it in a. I think you went proper dark.
I think
for a moment you went proper into, and it was like, how do we get this back to the plot of Home Alone? Because you went away from a little bit away from it. And I was like, I did not expect it to go in that direction.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
We've had there's so much good stuff out there. To be fair, the recent one when you mentioned the Wicker Man before, and that is one of my most favourite recent episodes. Yeah. Not only because there was a lot to talk about, there's a lot to delve into, but also I believe that's the same episode where I went off on the tangent about John Carpenter's Starman, and we just burst into laughter for about a minute.
Yeah,
because out of nowhere, I mixed up my words, and I keep referring to this in my head, and I've said this several times since we recorded it, is beat her to shit death.
Beat her to shit death, yeah.
Beat her to shit death. And there were loads of other funny stuff in there about the naked dancing and all the whacking off that probably happened, but beat her to shit death, it just keeps running through my head
it does.
Since I said it, and every time I think about someone dying now, I'm like, they got beat to shit death.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a banging episode, man. That one in Suspiria, we were on fire.
Yeah, and we were popping.
We had a couple of sexual men introduced as well. So I remember Jerry Dandridge was the most recent one, but I'm trying to remember the other characters who have been inducted into the Sexual Man Club. I remember Frank from Hellraiser.
Yeah,
Frank Cotton, because he is the epitome of a sexual man.
I'm pretty sure Skeet Ulrich
was
a sexual man.
He would definitely be a sexual man, but it didn't air that episode.
No,
so whether it's officially in the club.
I don't know if we referenced. No, I feel like it had been a long time. I was wondering if in the Scream, because the sexual man Skeet Ulrich came back in Scream 5.
So maybe the sexual man came back in that. But yeah,
there were many. I mean, I think there was definitely the question of William Dafoe.
Yes,
as a sexual man to us, because
it was in
our
the
Lighthouse episode.
That was a fun one,
which is about a pretty great one, because that one, the film is so weird, and when a film's so weird, we're getting weird.
Yeah, we're getting weird.
We're getting real about what would it be like if seagulls were picking your body apart on the shoreline? What are they doing if they're going at your body, and what's your reaction if they're doing while you're lying out there naked?
That was a good one, man.
That's damn good.
I'll tell you because we've brought in a couple of features, and obviously In Memoriam is one of the OGs. It's the classic. Comes back, and it's real easy to do and easy to riff on. But I think in the past year, the two that we've done the most, and I mean partly because they're so fun to do, but it's obviously must-see horror and video nasties. I think with the must-see horror, we have to do it. We have to. We've committed
to it, and that's not a bad thing. That's not like committing to Final Destination.
No,
this is more of that 100 horror list. And if you haven't listened much, that's our top 100 list that we've bought from a random Amazon list, which is full of random ones that we've talked about several times. But it's also because if we don't do it consistently, we will be here till we are 50 years old.
Yeah, because there's so many. But I think the other good thing about it is, we had this conversation every time we look at it. 80% of the films on there, so 80 of the films on there, are real classics. likes.
Yeah.
And
once you forget about.
And the good thing about doing it and having that as a feature is it allows us to hit like the big blockbuster horrors that most people will kind of be aware of. So if we're looking at like drawing people into the show, which we're always trying to do, obviously, then that's like a film that they'll recognise. And it does let us actually think of like, is it actually must-see horror?
Yeah.
Because there's some on there that definitely aren't.
It is, that is a real... And it's actually really harder than you think, because you can have ones that you like, and then you put it in perspective of like, I really enjoyed that. At the same time, though, if someone was like, gun to your head, would that go in your 100 best? And it's really hard because there are so many horror films out there. Millions of horror films out there. So literally, to say like, what is your 100, I feel like is a really freaking... And I feel like actually in horror, I would find that harder than probably any other genre putting 100 in there.
Yeah.
Because there are just so many of them. And so many of varying different styles and different types. And this is why our podcast can just keep going and going, because we're never going to run out of content for films to watch.
No.
But... yeah, that is what makes it so hard, and it also allows us to have some controversial opinions, which are always good.
Yeah, well, we've disagreed on... because I think one thing that's good about our podcast as well is that we do disagree on things. A lot of the times you'll hear them and they're both... like agree on everything, and it gets a bit like, oh yeah, I agree with you on that. I agree with you. Okay, next point. But we do disagree at times, and we strangle each other off air.
We don't, we keep it civil. We don't go into the vulgarity of it. We don't go like fuck you and storm off.
Just stop fighting.
You fucking say that about
how dare you?
Don't you say that about how terrible Bram Stoker's
how good it is. But that's the one. That's got to be a point of contention.
But we haven't done that film yet, but we will do that. We will do that film, and I may realise that it's not as bad as
you may love
it.
But I mean, we disagreed on. I mean, David Carradine and Death Race obviously wasn't on there. But then I think we disagreed on Event Horizon. That's the only one we've disagreed on so far.
I think so. Yeah. We have. That's the only one so far, but I'm sure there will be many more when it's just not hitting onto that kind of level. And we've had lots of that. Our horror hot takes is also another fun one, which we've only just really started. We've only done 2 of those so far. But the part of that is also our first one. There were several where we kind of had glancing looks.
Who are you?
What is this? Including obviously the A24 one, which was easier for us to lead into. Or I think one of mine is that generally most horror films are bad. Yeah,
I remember you had that. I was surprised you were dragged through the streets.
Rob is a lover of watching any Rob. Your life is mainly just watching any random Amazon horror film that pops up.
How
don't
dare
lean
you?
so heavily into some of them, but I was just like, that's because I found that a lot of them are just bad.
I'm like, how dare you insult this film from 1984?
Because there are so many horror films. There's more bad than there is good.
I mean, that was a point of contention.
That average probably works with any other genre.
I think mine.
Films out there.
Mine was my controversial one for you was that I don't really like Child's Play, and I don't like Chucky as a character. And I still stand by those guns, man. I'm just not a big fan of it. But
that's fine. That's all the balance that is all about that taste, and and these things do come in certain films where we feel like certain ones are better than others and things like that, and even when we come, like you said, about video nasties, even then we've talked and compared about different video nasties, and sometimes we've had a contention about which one, like the Last House on the Left original, the remake, going into like certain ones of looking at those video nasties and really delving deep. The nice thing about that feature though is the fact that being British and things like that, and that's a wholly British kind of... It's nice to delve into the mainly... Like, they're not all British films, but this is all about the way that the British system looks at them and being very related to us in that way.
And Britain at the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to capture a moment in history. And again, it's something that we quite like. We have talked before about whether we delve more into the real life, real thing, whether we hit on that. Should we be mining that gold of that true crime horror?
Just switch to true crime podcast.
Just do that, or just do the occasional little this is related to
this murder is related to that film in a very obscure way. Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that and milk
it. Let's milk all of that.
But I mean, even the video nasty segments, I think, like, obviously there are some podcasts that do it and YouTube channels, but I think it's a relatively unique feature to us. Like, I know that's a contradiction to say other people do it; it's unique to us.
Yeah.
But a lot of the podcasts that like we listen to, not many do have a video nasty segment, and I think it's like I said, it's a real interesting part of British history. Yeah. And then the films themselves are those. I kind of have a love for them. Like I don't think I've seen a video nasty film that I haven't enjoyed really, because they were pulpy and they were fun.
Cut for being pulpy and obscene, and we like that. And also because we, as ourselves, and as we talked about in the episode, but we as ourselves were brought up kind of, and that kind of late 90s as that was fading out, but as they were first starting to show some of those, those dark and dirty Channel 4 nights when you're in the house at when you're staying up at midnight trying to catch a film, and we were there watching one of those The Exorcist for the first time, UK premiere,
first time uncut,
or whatever dirty movies were playing on Channel 4, because that's what it used to be in the UK, a real dirty old stuff. Channel 4 and Channel 5 after about 11 o'clock would just be pure filth.
Just beat off.
Horror or filth. It feels or just any banned film would be on. That's what they like to play. So we just but that was our 90s as a kid. Your first peek at them boobies and stuff like that was probably watching late night Channel 4 or something like that. Or the first time you saw someone having sex was probably on that.
I remember feeling really uncomfortable being in the room watching Edward Scissorhands with my parents when he's in that hairdresser's room.
Oh, yeah.
And she's trying it on with him, and I was like, this is sexual. I shouldn't be watching this with my mum and dad. I was 8 years old.
I'm a good Christian.
I'm a good Christian boy. Resist the urge to beat.
That's in stark contrast to me, whereas I'd basically be sat on the couch.
You'd just be beaten off to it.
I'd probably be sat on the couch when I was 8 years old. Mum would be watching Sex and the City, and I'm watching some mid-30s lass kind of get ploughed by some random dude banging all day long, and just being I really enjoyed
I like this.
I really enjoyed the talk about menopause.
I know what it is now.
I know how to have sex in doggy style.
I
know what a golden shower is now.
At 8 years old.
All these things that I can go and try on the playground.
It didn't go down well, did it?
Absolutely not. So obviously
it's a fun segment.
Stroking our own pipe.
Stroke our
just to go on
just stroke our own pipes.
This whole episode is that. So if you're not really enjoying it, you're free to go.
Yeah.
You've already watched enough that we get the viewing.
Yeah.
That is a joke. We want people to keep listening and enjoy our content forever until we're that Joe Rogan.
When we programmed our brains into AI.
And part of celebrating ourselves is also a nice part of ours is when we've got a chance to celebrate other podcasts or ourselves. So as much as a thank you to all the people that come out and listen to us, we also get to kind of thank the people that help our podcast grow, and that is a lot of the podcasts out there that we listen to, and to blitz off a few of the ones So I Married a Horror Fan podcast. It's probably the one that's been on our I think.
Yeah, but they've been on
a couple of times. Discount podcast with my friend Josh has been on. He's been on once. We have No Roads. Is that right?
Well, we got Neil from We Needed Roads. That was a fun podcast.
You've been on Ghoul
I've been on Ghoul Friends. I'm going on Ghoul Friends again in September. So and the cool thing is of going on shows and interacting with other people is that you hear new views, and you get to cross promote, and you get to do all of that, and you get to support each other, which is what it's good. Our problem is though that we are just really bad at scheduling. So there's so many guests we'd love to have on, but we're just brain dead.
One of the other segments that went out last Christmas is we have been I think I first brought it up, but we've wanted to do a quiz.
Yeah, we
for
did
so long, and we were going to get at Christmas we were going to try and get as many people for a New Year quiz, and that just went by. Our scheduling instructor, but at the same time we also know that the other podcasts, that as much as this is to get your own content out there feels like a lot of time. And then you've got your own life, your own job, your own work. Then you're also trying to get someone else to get on the same timeline. It's hard enough for us to go.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Well, it is like really difficult because our lives are moving on. Like I'm getting married.
We're getting married.
Or will be married. I will legally be married by the time this episode is here.
And then you've got the wedding ceremony this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. You know? So Bobby's my best man for that. So we've got that excitement coming up.
Yeah.
While also I'm juggling baby. Robbie's getting married in November this year, and then he's got to start getting that sorted because he's doing it in another country. Yeah. I won't tell you the dates, so you can't come into Robbie's house while he's away.
You cannot burgle me. I don't have anything to steal anyway.
All of those life changes, and then just the fact that we both work in jobs where we're constantly needed and overworked
like hell,
overworked like crazy. So just to make you feel sorry for us more and again, stroke that pipe a bit. But that's it is a proper juggle to kind of do these things.
Well, because originally we were doing it fortnightly.
Yeah, we were. That's true.
Fortnight. It's quite Willem Dafoe. And then we were like, we're having so much fun doing this. Like, we want to build our numbers, and we're building numbers, which is really cool. Like, each month we're getting more and more. So, shout out to everyone again. But we got to the point where we were like, we want to do this weekly because we're loving doing it. And then when Eliza was born, we were like, don't know how we're going to be able to do it. Yeah. But so far, we've just
about squeaked by. We've had a few little tiny breaks, but we haven't had anything that's been as long as previously.
Well, we've had to because COVID, man.
When
COVID, we started into it, and we got into a habit of going to Dan's recording, and then COVID came and fucked us again. Yeah, and then
that was like the second big wave. Where we started recording with Dan. Partially that was because we were waiting for it to lift so we could actually go to record with him. That's why there was obviously fortnightly. That was it sounds like episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, but there's about almost 2 months I think between that first episode to that third episode. And all of that kind of happened in a row. So we had to, as with everyone else, we were kind of trying to work out how to do that. We tried to do online, but that's where a lot of our ones fucked up originally because we couldn't make them work. Rip to Scream and The Stepfather and Dusk Till Dawn.
Stepfather, Dusk Till Dawn.
I think Dusk Till Dawn's the only one we've actually redone.
Yeah.
Apart from that's the only one we actually got around to doing again. Those titty twisters.
Yeah.
That we have had that constant flow of fuck ups. Or just life shit. So it is a really hard thing to balance. But in terms of going back to
it's
guests, it's fantastic the support that we get and all of the different podcasts that have come, and some have actually gone in the time that we've been around. A lot of them have grown together, but we've said this before many times, but it's such a nice community of people that we've got really helping each other. And again, then there are so many other podcasts that we haven't actually talked about here. Some that are newer, some that are building up, and then and any podcast out there that we help with, thank you for your help and thank you for sharing and joining with us. And just a big thank you. We've done some great episodes with We Have No Roads podcast. You did the burning that was include fun me that time. Man.
That was a fun film as well.
Yeah, George Costanza,
and
that was a Seinfeld-filled episode.
It was. Well, Neil loved Seinfeld as well, so it worked really well. And another cool thing is. Jason Alexander liked the tweet, He did. George Costanza himself.
The following of George Costanza himself. He enjoyed that episode. And then our biggest ever episode with Discount Pod.
Yeah.
Which I wondered at the time, is it because of your podcast? And Josh has said no. It's definitely not because of ours. But it's good they got that. But that one went Halloween Ends. And I think it's because it was such a controversial film. But that one has a big... That one we had a deep discussion into that one. We had a lot of feelings about that one. We still have a lot of feelings about that one.
We're still confused.
That one still hits us
We're still scared.
Place. And also, I think I mainly remember that because I think about 3 times without meaning to, I kind of think I was quite rude to Josh without meaning to be about his podcast and his other one. So I apologise again for any.
You just shit on it.
We will have him again in the future. That's a gay video game based one. So we have talked about all of the upcoming video games like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
So we're going to try
all those kind of parts. We're going to try and bring that together with a lot of the talk of that. And of course, our other main guest that we've had on ours, So I Married a Horror Fan podcast, which was for Hellraiser.
Hellraiser was Simon and Lee. And we did.
Yeah. We also did it on their podcast as well for the remake with them. A lot of mixed feelings, a lot of talk, but that was a really fun episode. The original Hellraiser, talking about Frank and the random nudity and the sexual... The sexual man that is Frank.
He is sexual man.
That was actually a really fun episode, that one.
Yeah.
I think, to be fair, all of our guest ones have always been more fun, and it is why we wish we could get around to doing more, because it always just adds an extra... To have someone else to bounce off of.
Yeah.
It's just so much better when you've got people to just randomly take... Especially when you've got people who do a podcast as well. And I always worry about the day that we're going to get on with someone and be like, fuck, this is not going at all, is it? Like, there's no back and forth.
There's no back and forth. There's no zingers.
Luckily, all of the people we had are all, funny, quick-witted. Their podcasts are so good that you can tell that it's really going to work.
Yeah.
And I do worry about the day that one day we're just going to be like, we're going to be ourselves, which the problem is, you can tell straight away, we get real comfortable.
Yeah,
we're real comfortable again. We'll start talking about like sexual man, the sexual thing, about random stuff you could do to a dog, and so far they've all gone with it and been like, yeah, we get you. We're on your wavelength. I just wait for the day that we say something and you're like, you can't say that.
I'm leaving.
Like literally just, what the fuck did you just say? I'm not doing that. Goodbye.
Well, that's one thing we did when we had when we were doing it on Podbean Live. So those who don't know, like, people can just listen in and leave messages. So we'd be talking and we'd get people leaving messages. And then one time, some random dude tried to join the call and tried to join in on the episode. And we had to fucking catch him and boot him out before he could speak. Some random dude.
Some dude from Egypt.
Egypt. And then he started asking us if we were, like, Christian or something. And we're like... I'm typing like, no, we're a horror podcast on air to him.
I'm trying to remember which one this comes. I don't know if that was in one of the Final Destination ones,
maybe.
Or if it was. Obviously it was during that period. And I think the transcript does play out in the episode. We didn't cut that at all. We were just like, some dude's trying to...
Maybe we should have had him on. It might have added more energy to the fourth or fifth film,
I feel like it happened when we had more energy and maybe the first one
maybe, yeah.
It wasn't by the dregs.
No, it
wasn't. So just generally, this whole... episode, the whole idea of it was kind of to have a little look back, and there are so many episodes, and this is the thing, after you've done 100 plus technically, probably technically, the next one is our official 100th episode, and we'll reveal that in a moment. But after you've done so many of these, it's just some of them I guess do run together. Some of them you look back and go, did we talk about that film?
Yeah.
And it's always going to happen. But I can say for the most part that we are very happy with the majority of what we've done.
I think so.
Even when we were just talking about the worst one, I couldn't actually pick many that I was like, oh, I hated doing that episode. Or even the bad ones, I was like, I didn't hate doing it.
Yeah.
I just know that there just wasn't as much energy, and that's disappointing when there's a little bit of lacking.
I think it's sometimes when you pick a film which is not as, particularly... It's not the best film, Like we've had some episodes that were class, like Texas Chainsaw, Valentine was fun, but there was films like when we did like the January Dumping Ground, for instance, and we looked at like Madman, and it was fun, and I'm not saying it was a bad episode. It was fun, but it's just like for me it was like a perfectly serviceable film, and there's only so much you can get out of when it's a film like that.
I will say, on the flip side of, it's always shit when you do something and you lose it, and we've had several close calls where certain other episodes have been like, oh crap, is that gone? Like, is that done? Even one of our more recent ones, I think maybe it was something like the Wicker Man, like one of those where it froze and I had to get it back, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that was a really good one, don't do that to us. But I will say, in one silver lining of certain ones, like From Dusk Till Dawn, I remember the first time we did it following like The Stepfather, which again I don't think we had the most energy for, because there wasn't that much to talk about, and not that it's not a bad film, but I don't remember that one. But the Dusk Till Dawn episode we did after it, I remember being quite a kind of rushed kind of when we did it again, it was much better than when we did it that first time. I remember the first time going after that one and being like, that wasn't actually that was a bit low energy.
Yeah,
I think we'd done several online in a row trying to get them out, and sometimes it does work against us. So anyway, there's lots of others, and we say this all the time, but seriously, if you are out there and you do actually consistently listen, we would love to hear any of your thoughts, like on the podcast. Like, this is why we've kind of done a little build up here, a little talk about it, because we like to just share our opinions occasionally, not that often, because we're always sharing our opinions on the films, and we always go off in tangents talking about ourselves or our own experiences anyway. But we just wanted to do a little kind of look back at where we've got to, and we've missed out about. We've talked probably about 5 episodes out of the 94 other episodes we've done so far. And there are so many out there parts of that, but we just enjoy doing it, and we just wanted to take some time to kind of review what we felt about and how we feel about the podcast and what we think about doing it, and kind of just like to hear. We'd like to hear from your kind of perspective of how you're feeling and what you're doing, what you're thinking about. Even if you just want to shout out to us what films you'd like to hear us talk about, then that's all good to us. We are happy to hear any of it anytime.
Have there been any films particularly that you've loved that we've covered?
What, like truly, truly loved?
Truly, truly loved.
Do you mean in terms of like, as in hadn't really seen it before, so not obviously like our Halloween or things like that?
Yeah, the like kind of films that you kind of discovered through the podcast that you absolutely loved.
I mean, I feel like there is quite a few. Even though it's mad and chaotic and it's got the weirdest soundtrack in the world, I did really enjoy the experience of going through Last House on the Left, because I've never seen it before.
Yeah,
it's one of those that I've always wanted to. And one of the best things about this podcast actually has been the idea that there are certain ones that I'm like, I have literally looked at that film a million times and I've never watched. Even ones we haven't
the trigger.
Even ones we haven't talked about actually yet or done, like. And I've gone out there and I've just watched them anyway. Like the Hellraiser. Hellraiser was a good example. I'd literally, since I was a kid, I can't remember how many times I looked at the box for Hellraiser.
Yeah.
And I literally looked at that character at Pinhead, and I knew him as a character. I'd never seen one of his films ever. And even though I thought I might have seen them, when I finally watched it, I was like, this is not the film I expected it to be at all. So getting to actually take the time with that, or even ones, again, that we haven't talked about. We've watched more of the Hellraiser films, and we haven't talked about the Hellraiser films.
Yeah, we've just been doing our own little private
the original thing. But I even went out, I watched like the Leprechaun films and things like that. That good or bad, I've still got out, and like because of the podcast, I've been a bit more open to like I will watch whatever.
Yeah.
But I think another good part is the kind of some of the more like foreign or kind of older classics that I've never seen, like Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Or the more obscure, or even Suspiria recently.
Yeah.
I'd seen it a million times, but I'd never pulled the trigger until that was on our Mussy Horror.
Yeah,
I'd never pulled the trigger to actually watch it. Or just stuff like that, like Zombie 2, and after watching Dawn of the Dead and things like that. So all of those kind of experiences, I just like the fact that it gets me out of my box a little bit to be like, don't just stick to the same old same slasher over and over, because I would just watch the slashers over and over again.
They're so easy to watch.
And nowadays, I actually don't get that much time to watch films and stuff like that. So this actually gives me the chance to go, I'm actually going to watch something that's different. I'm not just going to watch Always Sunny on repeat. Or that's just what you do. You end up getting like, I just want to be like comfy and things like that. And it's like, no, watch something new. What about you? What's been your to flip it back to you?
Definitely Suspiria. Like I watched a couple of Argento films, maybe a year, 18 months ago, and I've spoken about it before on the podcast. But kind of Euro horror is something that I've started to get into, and Giallo over the past 18 months, 2 years, but very slowly. But it was Suspiria was always a film that I'd heard about. But yeah, again, I hadn't pulled the trigger on it, so I was really pleased that it came up and I went for it. Yeah. Since it's it's a 5-star film for me. I fucking loved it. Loved the soundtrack. Loved everything about it. And I've since gone on to start going through his back catalogue. and watching a few other stuff like that. I think The Birds as well. I mean, I mentioned on The Birds how I was always put off by it. I always expected it to be pretty shit, but actually really enjoyed it. There was also X. I thought was fucking class, and although I watched it, it was great to watch it again. And then I think Eaten Alive. That was a really fun film that I kind of loved that we ended up watching and talking about.
That led to some. That went weird.
That went weird.
Odd. Actually, when we were talking about to think about another one, only because of how fucked up it is, and not necessarily because I loved it, but Nightmare on a Damaged Brain.
Yeah,
because it just led to such weird places in our damaged brains.
It was fun. Yeah, and I think those are the ones that stick out to me, as well as American Werewolf. I think rewatching that, because that we did that was quite an early one, but that was a real fun episode. And watching it again, I hadn't watched it for years, was great. And then, I mean, obviously stuff like The Thing, watching that again. I'm trying to think.
I just really like it. There are, and we don't get many opportunities. It's normally only when it's the bigger one. But when we've had opportunities to actually go to the cinema,
and
actually watch a film together, then record afterwards. So Bodies.
That was awesome.
Candyman remake, which was not as memorable, I don't think, but
it was still pretty fun.
Fun to do. Or just like the Scream films or Halloween films that have had many sequels over the last year. When we've had an opportunity to actually like go and do it and then do our little like review episodes or do a full episode afterwards. Because it's always interesting whenever you leave the cinema, you're always in the brain of like, oh, what do you think of it? And you normally go out somewhere and have a drink, but normally we just like be like, right, don't say it.
Don't speak. Don't fucking speak to me.
Our silent car rides. It's literally like me and Charlotte were watching Goodfellas last night. Showed it for the first time. And I'm just there like thinking like it's literally like when they're like driving in the car and one of you is about to be whacked. It's like,
it's just quite who's gonna kill the first? Like, who's
gonna
getting
shoot
whacked?
you in the back of the head? Like, coming out from behind, just like
Well, I always call it friend time. We have something to eat, we go watch the film, we drive back in silence, we record, and Anna always messages me saying like, hope you enjoy your boys' date. And I'm like, no, it's friend time, not boys' date. But yeah, those are good, and it's good that we get to do that. And I think one thing is that I remember when we recorded Prey, and we did that at home, and then we put it out there. And we thought like, we'll get decent numbers on it. But it did real good numbers.
Yeah.
And I think that spurred us on to be like, oh shit, we should be trying to hit these as they come out.
Yeah.
And we've been pretty consistent with it. Especially for the ones that we want to see. Like the Pope's Exorcist. I don't give a fuck about that. Sorry, Russell.
To be fair, and we have found that with certain ones. Like, it is interesting how it hits in certain ways. But you can tell basically like, the bigger the film is or the more promotion it's kind of had, the bigger the audience is, or if not it's kind of more middling. Like for every Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, Scream, or Candyman, which did alright, or Prey, which was released obviously straight to Disney Plus, those ones all hit. But then for every one of those you've got ones where people just haven't seen it and therefore aren't as interested. But that doesn't mean we don't want to hit the ones that are underrated. But like Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City, didn't really like it did fine, but it was just just like the film itself, it ended up just being a bit middling, and
I've been really wanting to watch that again since. I don't know why, hankering since playing RE4 remake. I've been like, what Welcome to Raccoon City.
But it does have like, sometimes it does doing it and being like, oh, I kind of wish more people would kind of listen to it or things. I'm actually just looking at that now. One that actually was a big hit at the box office, but actually one of our lower numbers, Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I wonder if it's because it didn't hit the full horror that people wanted.
Maybe
you wanted that blood and gore. You want that deep.
You want that deep horror.
That deep cut. But even then, Bodies, which I really enjoyed. I thought was a real fun time. But that one not as big either, because not many people actually have seen it.
Maybe,
it is all that. So it's all that ebb and flow, and there's a correlation here which we ain't going to work out.
No, we're not intelligent enough.
We've tried to hit it. We're being like, oh, that made numbers, so we're going to dig for that gold. We're going to be like little misers going like, I'm going to pick every bit off of here.
Yeah, let's
pull this carcass apart for anything it got. You know what I mean? And then and sometimes you feel like it hits too long, or you feel like you're going on about it too long. I feel like Halloween Ends, we went on for about a month going like, oh my god, it made such big nerve. Keep coming. Keep
doing it, bump it.
To the point where we were like, oh, we killed it.
Yeah, we killed it.
we flogged
that dead
Myers until we had to grind him up.
Yeah.
Because he's dead.
He is dead.
They made sure of that with Halloween.
They did.
So anyway, stroking our own egos just
pipes.
a little bit longer, but mainly this was meant to be a thank you.
Yeah, it's a thank you, and it's a look back, isn't it?
Looking back at those and kind of reviewing those, and I don't know. I always think when I listen to podcasts myself, I kind of be like, I wonder what they think of that.
Yeah.
After it, what do they think of how they're doing? What are their favourite episodes that they've talked about? What are their favourite parts, and what do they enjoy about doing it? Not just. And that's why we said earlier about like I like when podcasts go off on tangents, because you tend to get a little bit more of them.
That's it, yeah.
And sometimes when certain films you just get so into that film that you don't always get that sometimes.
Yeah.
Or with TV ones and stuff like that. They're just too like structured into it. So this is why I wanted to do this episode, and so a big thank you for this opportunity to actually reach that 100, which is coming next week.
And we're going to be doing the original Dawn of the Dead.
Yes.
Which is on our must-see horror poster, but we're not doing it as must-see horror. We've concocted a little scheme for that. But I mean, I love Dawn of the Dead. I think it's a classic. We really tried to think of what's an all-time classic that we can hit for 100 episodes.
Yeah.
We don't want to do anything like too obscure. We were thinking about doing Drag Me to Hell. But we ended up doing that for the episode that's just been, mainly because it's where we got our name from. But we also thought, well, it's not a film that is big enough for 100, or that we love it
enough significance.
No.
If you listen to that episode, if we even basically make it clear that really the name might have come as a play on words, but that's pretty much it.
That's it, yeah.
I'm very excited to talk, and I hope you'll be excited to listen to Dawn of the Dead. It's kind of mad we've gone this long without doing it. Because we've done the remake.
Yeah, we have.
We've done the remake, and we've even done Army of the Dead, a kind of play off of the ideas of that by Zack Snyder. But we've never done that. We've never done. The odd thing is we've never done the Night of the Living Dead either.
No, we did mention it in the first episode.
We did. We have talked about Night of the
For
Living
those
Dead
out there, it's one of my
and Dawn of the Dead has popped up a little bit, as has Day of the Dead a little bit in some of those in memoriam and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dawn of the Dead probably actually the least talked about, to be honest.
Yeah, probably.
It's odd because it's cracker of a film, or we'll rewatch it, or will we change our mind?
Will we discuss
controversial opinion? We're going to tear it apart like they're zombies.
Yeah, like they did to Captain Rhodes
in Dale.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's it. To summarise, this has been our little look back as we approach 100 episodes. As Seb said, this is kind of a bit of a thank you and a bit of a look into our thoughts on nearly 100 episodes of Cast Me to Hell. Thank you to everybody who does listen to the show, and everybody who's left us a lovely review. It really does help. We always screenshot them to each other. We're always trying to grow the podcast, and leaving a review and subscribing really does help. I've said it on a couple of the episodes before, but we've nearly hit 100 followers on Spotify, and we've nearly hit 50 on Apple Podcasts, which is absolutely fucking class. So thank you to everybody who has subscribed. Please leave us a lovely review and hit that subscribe button. Come and let us know your thoughts on the 99 episodes of Cast Me to Hell. The highs, the lows, the moments that have made you cry, all of it. On TikTok, Instagram and Twitter at CMTH Podcast. And we will see you next week, as there is no more room in hell and the dead must walk the earth, for Dawn of the Dead and our 100th episode. Goodbye.